And welcome back to American Agenda. I'm Heather Childers along with Bob Sellers. Today is the day when the nation celebrates the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. On Dr. King's birthday was actually January 15th. He would have been 92 years old. And joining us now to discuss the civil rights leader's legacy and how it relates to what's happening in the nation right now is Derryck Green. He's a member of Project 21, and our own Joe Pinion, who is host of Saturday Agenda. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it. Derryck, I'll start with you. What are the lessons that we can learn and we could pull from to get through the divisiveness, the censorship, all of the things that are happening today?
I think the primary lesson that we can learn is that skills and character matter more than anything else. And I think people should be judged primarily on those characteristics. Those are the things that can transcend some of the things that divide us, that allow us to work collaboratively toward furthering Reverend King's public ministry. And I think that what we're seeing today is people who are appropriating Reverend King's public ministry and his legacy and his moral authority are doing the exact opposite. They want to make race essential to who we are as Americans. And I think that undermines everything that he's accomplished.
Joe, your thoughts on this and on this day?
Look, I think, to my colleague's point, it's important to remember not just the actual image that is Dr. King, but also the blueprint that Dr. King created. And so I think one of the things that we don't talk much is about the love that Dr. King had for America and the people of America, irrespective of and also in spite of the challenges that we face and the imperfections of the people that call this nation home. And so when Dr. King talks about the fact that the destiny of black people is tied up in the destiny of America, you cannot say that we built it for free and not act as if you have ownership over the land of the home and the brave. So I think on some basic level, we have to remain consistent and rooted in this truth that what happens to black people in America and what is good for black people in America is good for America as a whole. And the love that we hope that America shows us is also love that we have to reciprocate if we're truly going to be a land of equality and be the land that fulfills the dream that was Dr. King's.
You know, Derryck, how do you think we've gotten to this place? Because it does seem like the Trump administration did a lot for the African-American community, a lot that he doesn't get credit for.
No, he doesn't get a lot of credit for it. He didn't get a lot of credit for it, but I think that was partially because I don't think that he defended his record enough to communicate the things that he did that benefited all Americans, but particularly American blacks. But I think one of the reasons we are here is because people don't take with the type of seriousness what Reverend King's public ministry was grounded in. It wasn't grounded in his academic credentials. It was grounded in the church, particularly the black church. And so if we want to fulfill what he started, we have to remember that, as my colleague just said, his ministry was characterized by love and forgiveness, but it was grounded in the Christian faith and tradition. And so I think that all of us should be reminded that when we refer to Reverend King, it should be Reverend, not Doctor, because that his ministry was centered in the church, not in the academy.
Yeah, Joe, one of the things that always struck me about Dr. King was he was all for civil disobedience, if you will, or protests. But they were not violent protests. And that seems to be a message that's lost even amongst those that revere him.
Well, look, I think people love to cherry pick the legacy of Dr. King. The most famously misquoted quote from Dr. King now is that, riots are the language of the unheard, which may be true. And yet the blueprint for the Southern Christian Leadership Council was not to take up billy clubs and start beating people or to start burning down buildings. In fact, it was completely the opposite. And so I think at the end of the day, if we talk about how we move forward, if we're really focused on trying to understand how a president like President Trump, that in many ways fulfilled many of the longtime policy actual advocacy that black people have been talking about for a long time, was not received the way in which it ought to have been received. It's rooted in the fact, again, that we understand inherently that we are spiritual beings mastering the human experience. And that if you look at it from that perspective, when you understand that we spend a great deal of money in politics trying to understand what people care about, then any policy agenda that we have for Black America also must be coupled with a message that resonates with the soul of a people and the frayed fragments of the pain that has led us to where we are today. And I think that that is the part of the equation that has been missing. And again, if we're going to find a way to get back on track, you find a way where our differences doesn't turn into deep division, then we truly have to get back to the point where we're willing to understand the pain of the life that has not been lived by ourselves.
Yeah, Derryck, you wrote something similar on social media. You said that the Black Americans who fought for civil rights rejected despair and emphasized values that radical progressives today insist are the legacy of white supremacy and colonialism. Expand on that a little bit.
Well, I think that people, they're saying things like, if we advocate personal responsibility, if we advocate controlling what we are able to control as people, to try to determine our destinies, there's a segment of people out there that are trying to refer to those characteristics as laced in white supremacy. And so, in my opinion, when you discredit those actions and behaviors that may not be guarantees of success but are predictors of success, you disempower those people. So then what you really are saying is that not only are we going to disempower American Blacks, but we're going to lower the standards for them. So now we have a lower set of standards that are separate and distinct for Blacks. And so it not only disempowers us, but it says that we're unable to accomplish the things that we can accomplish without the benefit of people interceding for us on our behalf. So it reinforces a Black inequality. And again, that also undermines the public ministry of Reverend King, because he appealed to the ideals in the Declaration of Independence and the protections in the Constitution. American Blacks are just as equal and capable as our multi-ethnic counterparts. But if you disempower us and say that we can only accomplish or achieve certain things based on someone else, what does that say? That's almost the type of racism that Reverend King was trying to transcend in the first place.
Yeah, we've got about 30 seconds, Joe. What do you think Dr. King would think of the station or the status of African Americans today in America?
That we've come a long way, that we have a long way to go, but that, to my colleague's point, we have to reject the soft bigotry of low expectations and the notion that somehow that white guilt is anywhere in the equation of Black power. No one ever would have believed that, and if we're truly going to uplift and empower a people, it has to be rooted in this notion that open the door, give us the opportunity, and watch us soar, watch us truly overcome.
All right, Derryck Green, Joe Pinion.